Hi, my name is Topher, and I'll be introducing our project and talking about Active Directory and subnetting. Our assignment was to utilize skills we learned in not only networking but operating systems. We were given the outline of a company called AFP Incorporated that had a bad habit of purchasing other companies. At this point, the fictional AFP is in the US and Europe with Mass Technologies, Hig.com, JRA Industries, and Hika International. We needed to create a forest in each country with 3 domains per forest. All domains must be able to communicate with each other, and administrators from the US forest must be able to log on with full permissions in the Europe forest. This will be discussed in greater detail by Michelle when she talks about group policies. For a pilot environment, which was just like the test environment where we had 8 computers, 4 per forest, to test our plan, we basically just had 2 domain controllers for 2 of the 3 domains that were part of the forest. And then we had Active Directory, Integrated DNS, DHCP, and WINS on each domain controller, and then we had 2 RAS servers that were connected to each other so that everything could communicate and we could test all the procedures to their fullest. With these results, we knew how the services installed and configured on the pilot computers would be implemented in the design itself. And that brings us to the design. Here we have 2 forests, AFP US and AFP Europe. In each forest we have our 3 domains. Between the forests is a forest trust. Between the domains is a 2-way transitive trust. The 2-way transitive trust ensures that each domain can properly communicate with each other. The connection between the 2 forests will be done via VPN for users and RDP for administrators. Since the AFP headquarters is in the US, we will go there and focus in on the primary domain afpus.inc. Our design is boiled down to, we had 2 routers that we put in for each domain, so we had full fault tolerance on our connection. So if one router went down, you could always map around from the other domains and still get in, and it also provided always have internet access. And then that went through the switches to our 2 domain controllers that had Active Directory Integrated DNS on it, and since there's 2 of them, that also has fault tolerance. If one goes down, you still have what you need. And then you have file servers, and over to the side we have ROUs like computer services, accounting, distribution, etc. Using this method, we have a proper security boundary for users, computers, and objects between domains, centralized control between all domains and forests with delegation of administration. And it is easier for users to move from domain to domain when they have the proper permissions to do so. Subnetting. We were given the IP range of 165.115 for Europe and 147.147 for the United States. The company needed enough IP addresses for 2,200 computers per network, so that came out to a CIDR notation of 20, which was right at about 4,000 computers per network. The same thing happened with AFP United States, CIDR notation of 20 and 4,000 computers per network. This solution provides 32 subnets for each forest with up to 4,094 usable IP addresses per network. The net mask for both ended up being 255.255.240.0.
Okay, hi, my name is Michelle, and I'm going to talk about group policies. Group policies were managed using the Group Policy Management Console, which we did have to install ourselves. All policies were applied, keeping in mind that the hierarchy of group policy objects goes from site to domain to OU. Policies for AFP were needed created to help to lock down users so that problems would not cause the business to slow down or stop. We created 3 group policies: manager's policy, password policy, and user policy. This diagram isn't really correct, but password policy was placed at the domain since it did need to apply to all users. The user policy would have been placed in all of these OUs except managers because those were meant for regular users. And anything for managers was placed in the manager's OU, specifically in the computer services department. And another requirement was to give the USA administrators permissions to manage Europe, but not vice versa. We first had to raise the domain functional level on all of our domains to Windows 2003, and then we also raised the force functional level to Windows 2003. Another requirement was that the company's shared folder needed to be synchronized when they were not connected to the network. What we did was we made the folder available offline and set it to automatically synchronize at log on and log off, which is also known as file caching or offline caching. We made the folder accessible to all users, and inside that folder, managers were allowed to make changes to folders of their department, and users were allowed to make changes to files they created or owned. And another requirement for the company was that every department's documents had certain permissions when accessed by another department. We chose to use NTFS permissions since they do allow more security options versus the VAT file systems. NTFS allows more control of security at both the file and folder level when accessed locally and over the network. And time for backup.
I'm Samantha. I'll be talking today about disaster recovery. Our disaster recovery plan consists of backup, shadow copy, RAID implementation, and automated system recovery. For backup, we have decided, based on the requirements, that we will have off-site storage as well as secondary backup on-site. Off-site backup will consist of a full backup performed Saturdays at 2 a.m. Along with that, we will also do an incremental backup Monday through Friday at 9 p.m. We chose incremental backup over differential due to the amount of information that may be needed to backup. Because of this, we are more concerned with the length of time to make the backup versus the time it takes to restore. We are not as concerned with the restore time because of the secondary on-site backup. This means we do not have to wait for the off-site tapes to be brought back. We will do a copy backup of user files from the servers on a daily basis to a local server for a 2-week rotation. As major changes are made on the operating system, we will also perform a system state backup that day. To implement access to changed information beyond using the restore process, we are implementing the use of shadow copies. Shadow copies will allow users to restore previous versions of files and folders. Shadow copies will be made twice a day using the default times of 7 a.m. and 12 p.m. If we feel there's a need to have more previous versions, we can add more times. The last part of our disaster recovery is set up 2 RAID implementations. The first RAID implementation will be RAID 1, which is disk mirroring, which allows for the boot and system partition to be part of the RAID. The second implementation of RAID will be RAID 5, in which we are striping the files across multiple drives for faster access. Creating the RAID implementation will also create an automated system recovery backup. As you can see, our disaster recovery consists of multiple backups, multiple restores, quick access to version changes, and fault tolerance of drives. And here now is Andy to go over DHCP.